Welcome. Don't you love that opener? It's like, ooh, just kind of goes across. Welcome to Social Glue powered by Restream. I am your host, as always, Rachel Moore, here with you. And we are in a few places. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, and we're on YouTube live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Here on the show that we have dubbed Social Glue powered by Restream, we stick to what social. Careful, it's permanent. It's like super glue, right? Where you try to like stick it to something, you're like, oh crap, now it's gonna like tear my skin off. I know social can feel like that. It's everywhere. It just gets everywhere. But welcome to the show. Thanks for watching. I always, as you guys, if you've ever seen this show before, some of you are frequent watchers. I love to open asking, where you from? Where you from? So in the comments of wherever you happen to be watching, please pop in and say, where are you watching from? It never ceases to amaze me how the magic of digital universe lets us meet people and broadcast to people from where we're not. Where I am is Denver, Colorado. So happy to be joining you here today. And I want to cover real quickly why and how we're joining you today. This show is brought to you by Restream. It is powered by Restream. It is literally facilitated by Restream. So the reason you're able to see me on any of 3 different channels is because I am broadcasting through the Restream Live Studio. And as you watch the show, you're going to see different ways that I get to use that. I get to show captions. I can share comments if I want. So if you guys are commenting, I can display those on the screen. It's pretty cool, especially if you have a question or comment when our guest is on, or as we're answering to this week's question, or reading our haiku, which we always close with. But I'm able to show those captions. I'm able to share my screen. I'm able to bring a guest on. And this is what blows my mind. Restream actually can broadcast to over 30 platforms at once. Now, you probably want to have some serious internet bandwidth for that. But I get to go to 3 and it's all good. So anyway, thank you again for joining us. So as if you are watching this for the first time, we have 3 major segments on the show. So first is the Social Glue news. We cover some social media news tidbits that you may or may not have heard about and give you just kind of the general synopsis of it and let you carry on with that. We also then will bring on our Social Glue shout out guest. So big portion of the show is trying to shine a spotlight on social media pros that deserve it, right? We do the unicorn job of everything. And so it stands to reason we should be able to laud those people and make sure they get the airtime they deserve. And then we'll actually 4 segments, because then we'll use our Social Glue shout out segment to answer the question of the week. And it's always something that's really helpful for businesses. So if you're a business and you know social has to be part of your business in some way, shape, or form, that's really the nugget that you are going to get the most play out of. So please join us for that. And of course, we'll wrap up with a social media original haiku submitted by one of our audience. And so I have a new one today to share with you. It'll be really good. All right, let us segue if we shall. And let me just make sure I chat. And I just see, I just told you I could share. Hello, nice to see you. Thanks for watching the show. Appreciate it. You can share your comments on the screen, so make them good, if you want to be included on the show. Let us segue into the Social Glue news segment. So first up is Apple. And as you can see, I'm making this all precious with how I want to show this on the screen. So, actually, Apple is not first. I plugged this in last minute because I've seen a lot of chit chat about this in my social feed. So for those of you who do or do not read Forbes, apparently an article came out about 5 days ago and it was helpful because, granted, there's a lot of people out there who probably are out of work, unemployed. Maybe they just got laid off or have been laid off, or, there is that factor out there. So this article is intended to be helpful, to tell people saying, hey, here are some things you can do. Whether you're unemployed or underemployed, you can do these as a side hustle. One of the items was social media manager. Now, what cracked me up and what really clued me into why I was seeing so much chatter about this particular article is because it really made it sound like, yeah, if you use Facebook, you're all set. No, you are not. Social media managers are marketers, okay? We market, which means we work in communications. We know how to write copy. We often know how to do graphic design. We're project managers. We have to know how to manage meetings and demands and take client requests or brand requests. We stay on brand. We're the brand police. We have a whole spectrum of stuff that we have to be good at to be effective social media managers. advertisers in marketing, not to mention advertising. Advertising is a whole nother thing. So I just wanted, if any of you have thoughts about that, I would love to hear in the chat, whether you're watching live or in the replay. But that was interesting. So just please know, and any of you are watching, if you're a social media pro, you know this in your heart, but feel free to share this around. It ain't just like, oh, let me just go, put out a shingle and I'll start doing Facebook marketing and advertising for people. You got some learning to do. And a lot of us have several years of learning that we have gathered to be able to do what we do today. So I wanted to cover that because that was in the news and it is impacting this industry. So it's important that we cover that. So next up, now I am going to cover Apple. So this one, as I just mentioned, there's a lot to social media marketing and advertising that people may not know. What cracked me up about that article was it said, yeah, you can just start Facebook advertising. It's great. I'm like, yes, and there's this new aspect to it that is really starting to make Facebook advertisers out there cringe, because Apple, what it's going to do, and it's already started rolling out, is it's going to begin on the Facebook app implementing a pop-up screen this is for iPhone or so iPad, iPhone users only. So it's only iOS, not for Android users. But essentially what it's going to do is do a pop-up that's going to say, hey, just know if you use this app, you're agreeing to advertising targeting. So targeting and tracking of you that will be used for the purpose of serving you ads. So I want you all, if you're not a social media advertiser, just get in your head and be like, so how would I feel if I saw that kind of pop-up? Would I be like, heck no, I don't want people tracking me so they can serve me ads. I hate ads. You see the quandary. So anyone who is going to be advertising on Facebook, and as we know, a whole heck of a lot of people out there use iPhones and iPads and they use Facebook. So a lot of people are going to be seeing that pop up. And based on how they respond, that is intensely going to affect the advertising and targeting capabilities for people who are using Facebook ads. Okay. So it's a big deal. And it is all about privacy. And look, I'm a huge data and privacy fan. I think people should be able to control that. But I also get advertising, and the less people care about when we can track them for advertising, the better off advertisers are. So that is a tug of war going on right there. So stay tuned. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people opine about how to get around or how to try to still advertise and target people when they've switched that off of their iPhone or iPad Facebook app. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about Pinterest. So we are in February, and I forgot to mention at the top, great. We are in the shortest month of the year, which, maybe a couple years ago would have been like, oh, it's no big deal. After 2020, I think anytime we get a short month, it's like, yay. But we're in February already. We've already got 1 month under the belt, and February is Black History Month. So it's exciting that Pinterest is making a big deal out of trying to make sure that it is highlighting Black History Month. And so what the company and its Blackboard internal employee resource group teamed up with prominent Black leaders and creators to offer ways that they could inspire other Black creators on Pinterest and also showcase those works on Pinterest in deference to Black History Month, which is great. So if you haven't skated over to Pinterest recently, skate over this month, and go take a look at that. It's diversity makes us better. And it's great to be able to see that very pointed and intentional featuring of our Black creators out there on Pinterest. And, I think a lot of the other apps are doing that too. You can see it definitely some themes that are going on for brands as well, which we probably are going to touch on a little bit later in the show when we talk to our social glue shout out guest. Next up, if you are a TikTok user, and this is primarily for more casual users, not necessarily businesses, but it's important for brands to know this too. TikTok is starting to implement warning labels on any videos that are created that might be spreading misinformation. Now, this does get into the whole bigger cluster of when social media companies and platforms, and they are private companies. Let's be clear about that. When they are, trying to weed out, dare I say censor, but trying to filter out some of the posts and content people are putting out there that could ultimately lead to danger. Okay. And of course, yes, I'm referring to conspiracy theories and different movements that led in part to the riot that happened at the Capitol in January. That was just a few weeks ago, everyone. I know it's crazy. But TikTok is making an effort, as other social media platforms have done, to say, hey, we want to kind of make sure we regulate that a little bit, because again, we've seen it demonstrated what happens when people use that information, believe wholeheartedly in it, and then mobilize with it. So just know that if you are a conspiracy theorist out there and are trying to post those conspiracy theories to TikTok, you are going to have a warning label slapped onto your video, just as you would if you were doing it on Twitter, probably on Facebook. They're a little lighter on that, and so on. So that is the Social Glue News segment. So if there's anything that you feel that we should have covered, or would you like to make sure we cover in an upcoming show, please do go to really.social/social glue, or put in the comments. Say, hey, you didn't cover this. I'd like to hear about this next time. And we can even chat about it in the comments. So please, by all means, let us know. Let us know what you think. And I did see another comment too. Apple and announcing war against Facebook. Yeah, or it's a great comment. I'm sure it's not just Facebook. I mean, Google Ads was already starting to, reduce their targeting, as far as like any demographics, reasons that you could be targeting people that could affect credit or housing or politics or employment. I think we're just going to need to expect that's going to keep getting broader. So, all right. So really great insights into the news, everyone. Thank you for joining us for that part. And again, let me know if there's something we didn't cover that you want to chat about. But I'm excited for the next part. So remember, I talked at the beginning about how one of the segments of the show is meant to give a shout out to a social media pro. We've already discussed a bit related to the Forbes article. It isn't just something you pick up and start doing. Though people have started doing it just that way, but it takes so much time and effort and investment and brains and creativity to get good at this job. And that is what this segment is about, the Social Glue shout out segment. So I am really excited this week to bring on someone I knew already in the social media circles. When you're in social media, you tend to follow and try to, stay up with trends by following certain brands that are working, are featured in communications and things like that. And I met this individual years ago, and we've known each other back and forth on social, but she's awesome and really knows her stuff. So I'm really excited to welcome Beki Winchel into the show. Beki, thank you for joining us here on Social Glue, powered by Restream.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. This is so exciting to chat with you today.
Well, and I appreciate you too, because I know I did need a pinch hitter, and you were like, hey, I can hop right in with you. And sometimes I know the spontaneity is part of our job, and I really appreciate that you were able to be spontaneous with me today.
I'm just trying to live up to the social media mantra, right? You got to come ready to play.
That's right. You got to take it and run with it and just roll with the punches. But no punching today. I will not be punching you. But I would love to give you the opportunity to share with our audience your origin story. Beki, can you tell us, how did you first get started in social media marketing?
Yeah, so I feel like this is definitely less exciting than WandaVision, my origin story, so to speak. Not going to be as cool as like the MCU, but I got started. I went to school at BYU, did a communications degree with an emphasis in PR, and really kind of started digging into social media at that point, as it was kind of on the cusp of having a more social media be added, especially to more of a communications. Rachel, you brought up before that social media pros are communicators, but traditionally, and what we're kind of seeing, weird to say traditional with social media, but marketers have really taken that torch and run with it, and PR pros have been catching up, so to speak. So I approached it from that opposite background of a PR pro who is really interested in social media. Worked for a couple startups, consulted, worked for a boutique PR agency, and then now I'm at Ragan Communications. So I used to be the editor of PR Daily. Now I still write for PR Daily, and I produce events for Ragan Communications, a lot of which, and the shameless plug alert, something coming up in March is our social media and digital comms conference. So I'm really lucky I get to talk to a lot of pros, and then I write daily. Our daily scoop has a lot of social media, because that's the way that we're playing this game, especially in 2020 and 2021, right? All these brands who, I think even the brands that you would think haven't embraced social media are going, oh boy, we
Yeah.
need to embrace social media. So it's now an all-encompassing thing, and I think it's a moment of both eye rolling and maybe relief for social media managers that knew this all along.
Yeah, there's definitely vindication. I still remember right after lockdown started, and I was in my job working, in social media managing with some other pros, and we did use advertising, we used targeting and things like that, but we started using social way more. Let's say our social media evolved quickly from what it had been into like because now you're finding, and I'll talk about it from the employee engagement standpoint. I was working for a large company where before COVID lockdowns happened, a lot of the engagement was happening on the sites at our work sites. Well, now that's out, and so everything had to be a digital engagement. Well, guess what? Social is very engaging, and so yeah, you're totally right. Social media managers, and I'm sure all those of you who are watching are like, yeah. We're like, well, I've got some job security here. I mean, granted, the unemployment thing is still a big deal and hurting people, even social media managers and marketers. But suddenly, a lot of companies were like, oh, hang on a second. We haven't been doing this as much as we should, and now we really need to if we're going to stay alive. So, definitely something we've been hearing from some of our guests even on the show. And Becky, I know you talked about that too. Just mentioned it earlier because you obviously are exposed to a lot of brands through what you do and stuff. And I do want to kind of segue because I think this is gonna be kind of the crux of what we talk about. And really, you have so many insights to offer to this. I do want to bring in the question that we wanted to talk about today. So, because this I think will get to segue nicely from what we were just sharing about. Yeah, all the social media pros are nodding and what brands are starting to do and realizing that they had to start doing it or else they're going to be left in the dust. So let me bring up the question here and do this lovely little thing. Okay, so this week's social glue question. And for those of you who want to add your own question, I put in the bottom right there. You can do that through our website. What trends in social are you seeing, Becky, as far as how brands are using social media? And, again, you said maybe they're using it differently. Maybe they just started, but what trends are you seeing through that brands are using social media for?
Yeah, and so I'm seeing several, and Rachel, you touched upon some of them already. So I'll kind of walk down the list, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many, and they just all tie into each other. It's kind of beautiful, how they go together, and there's this kind of like serendipitous, commingling of a lot of efforts happening. So the first thing I've noticed, is that user experience and with that user design has become even more important. To speak to what you were just talking about, Rachel, it's not only reaching employees but also reaching consumers, and we're having to do it digitally now because we're not able to go face to face. The other thing too is how do you reach somebody digitally when the fatigue is so high? There's the buzzwords of Zoom fatigue and everything else, but then there's also a lot of and this kind of feeds into some more trends, but people talk about kind of the general toxicity of some social media platforms or some even conversations that are happening online. And I think it's so important to look at that user experience, and that can mean any number of things. Something that I've noticed that really stands out is so we had a speaker at one of our events, our Future of Communications event. She's the Catherine Campbell. She's the director of research and insights for Ticketmaster, and what she shared with us is that and I would highly also recommend you following her. It's at Sparks the underscore KC. She's a great person to follow on Twitter. She shared that a lot of the technology adoption and the kind of backlog or like background of user experience with the pandemic has basically sped up the adoption and sped up the need for this technology by about 20 years, like 10 to 20 years. And
Wow.
so it's crazy. Like just this, we've completely leaped over at least a decade or more. And suddenly too, the tech adoption of older demographics. You know, you think, I know you just talked about TikTok, for example, and there's so many social media platforms as well as brands thinking, well, where do we want to be and who do we want to cater to? And it's usually always about the younger consumers. And it's not that they're not important, but especially now what COVID has shown a lot of brands is that that sort of obstacle to entry, or that barrier to entry for older demographics, for the baby boomers and things like that, it's gone. They have to, out of necessity, now adopt these digital first, mobile first, whether it's an app, whether it's ordering online your groceries, whether it's, you know, getting on Twitter and trying to figure out, you know, the news and how to interact. And all of that means that suddenly the user experience cannot only be about young consumers. It has to be about all these different pockets. And so there's that whole readjustment of things going on. And that feeds into data. And we talked, I mean, I will admit, as being a PR pro, you know, the joke is that, you know, we got into communications and PR because we're not numbers people. So that's kind of the old tired joke that we like to share. But the thing is data will help by helping you not kind of have a knee-jerk reaction one way or the other. Like it'll clearly say, these are your customers, these are potential customers, these are what your customers are doing, and that means any number of things. I talked to somebody who leads research and insights at PepsiCo. He's going to be, another shameless plug, speaking in April for us, and what he said was, you know, there's this huge rise of, you know, snacking because we're home, we're working from home, we live at home, we are doing virtual, you know, events and fun things at home. Everything's at home. And so there's a lot of snacking, the loungewear, and all of those things where at first, maybe you thought that, you know, maybe like somebody at PepsiCo, and he's specifically over sports drinks, thought, well, with the closing of gyms, all of a sudden, this is not going to be needed anymore, and we need to kind of pivot our strategy. But really what they found out is people are still working out. They're just doing it in different ways. And so that data is crucial to you not making, you know, a huge pendulum switch that is going to hurt your brand rather than help it. Those are like two huge things living in the digital space that I think social media pros are going to be at the forefront, and they are at the forefront, right?
Yeah.
Of both of them. The other thing I see is, and you touched upon this, the fake news, misinformation, and that feeds into trust. So there's a couple of things. I was talking to Karthik Krishnan, who's the CEO of Britannica Group, and he had such an eloquent way of putting it. He said that, you know, there's a lot of what some of these platforms, you know, have done, and it's not necessarily the platform's fault, but they've kind of like egged on or kind of provided like the like nice, like moldy environment, so to speak, of what he called intellectual laziness. Of that, you know, there definitely is this thing where you see something, it might not be verified, but you're going to run with it because it's interesting, it's a juicy story, it can go viral really quickly. And then there comes the important conversation for social media pros is, where is our responsibility? And it really, the thing that we keep ending up to is that it's not just Twitter's problem, it's not just Facebook's problem, it's not just Snapchat's or TikTok's problem, it's all of us as communicators helping our employees, our executives, and our consumers be more media literate and be more savvy consumers of information. That's huge. I don't have any nice answers. I don't know how we're going to do it. But we need to figure out how. You know, it's so important. And with that too, there's a huge, so Edelman, if any of you want to check out Edelman's Trust Barometer, if you Google it, you can find it very easily. They publish a lot of reports. They've come out with they had a lot of mini reports for 2020. They came out with the first one in 2021 already, and are going to be dividing out smaller reports too. They talked about the trust bubble that it's burst. And what's interesting is looking at their report, their first report, is that here it says the trust index for businesses from 2020 to 2021 for the first time went up 2 points. So now business is the only trusted institution. No longer is it NGOs, no longer is it government, and no longer is it media, but it's businesses.
Wow.
That's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
When you're talking about misinformation, viral campaigns, you were talking about extremists and that sort of like fringe kind of behavior. And more than ever before, brands, and then by extension brand social media managers or agencies are going to have to deal with this.
Yeah.
And it's heavy, it's very heavy.
Yeah.
But the upside is that you can have so much trust with consumers and your employees, which is great.
No, I love that too. That blows my mind that you've mentioned that too, because I don't know. I feel like, and I think we talked a little bit offline about this too, and if we want, we can dive into it. But you just think about 2020 with the social justice, and all the things that were happening in addition to COVID, and often maybe even, that helped, the lockdowns and isolation kind of helped pave the way for it, where people were activated more. But you saw, and we all saw, businesses for the first time, it felt like anyway, we're finally saying, you know what, we're taking a stand right now for whatever side that they wanted to be on. And there are more than one side, and some of them were taking ones for on one side, and that's still happening today. But I think that ties in exactly with what you were just saying, where, businesses have this opportunity to build trust, but they still too can make their stand and have people who trust them to be a certain way or take a certain side on an issue that impacts everybody. And so how are they going to use that trust now is the big question, and are you going to use it to, for what's right or for what's wrong? Or, are you going to use it for profit? Or, a little more philanthropic, and actual things that matter to people. But it's such an interesting, like you said, evolution. Like, I totally believe that, where it feels like we did take a big step that's 20 years faster than maybe it would have happened normally. But, and I think you had talked a little bit offline. I'd love if you want to share too, just another trend that you might be seeing about stuff like that's about social justice or diversity or things like that.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you queued me up. You're so great. You queued me right up for it, because I was just going to say, and and you brought up that the wonderful example of Black History Month. I mean, so we're 3 days into February. It's a short month, and that's all I'm seeing on Twitter and Facebook is Black History Month and everything like that. But really, what's happening now is it's kind of a couple of things. It's the fact that like you said, taking a stand and being forthcoming with the stand that you're taking and being vocal about social justice issues, especially now. I mean, if we're really specifically talking about Black History Month, especially, that's social justice, racial equality, and DE&I efforts. And the big thing here, and there's a piece of it where social media pros are kind of like, I don't want to say this lightly, because especially because of COVID, but they virtually are on the front lines, right? They are like the first line of people that your brand is going, like, your customers are going to interact with. And so you're definitely, as a social media professional, like front and center with this message. And there's a couple of things with that. One is that more than ever, like I just talked about, like this trust bubble, and bursting, and now businesses are the only trusted institution, that Edelman said. They also said, there was another report in 2020. It was, I think, October, like September to November time, that they published a report, and it was more specifically on social justice, racial equality, and DE&I, like that, what you just said, taking a stand. And what they saw is basically what, is kind of like the obvious elephant in the room, which is, it's not okay anymore to stay silent. I think that there was a long time before June 2020 where, businesses were like, hey there, we're not a Ben and Jerry's. We don't want to get involved in this mess.
Right.
And what's funny about that is I remember talking to Ben and Jerry's PR Pooba. He has a cool title, just so he's like, they're a cool company. And I say that with all due love and respect, because he's amazing. Sean Greenwood, and he's on Twitter too. Amazing guy. One of the things that he said in speaking, and this was 2019, was he was speaking at a crisis communications conference, and he said to me, something to the effect of, I mean, isn't it just don't do crappy things and then you won't get criticized? I'm like, if it were only that simple.
Yeah, right.
And, and I think there is definitely an element to that, but there's also, like, what business before June 2020 would even remotely think about taking a stand even in the neck of the woods of Ben and Jerry's? Because Ben and Jerry's is so far ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And, in terms of, like, they were very quick to be like, no, this is white supremacy. We're not standing for it. Also, climate change is real. We're not standing for that.
Right.
And all of these other things. And, and they continue to do this. But really what's happening now is more brands are realizing that they can't take that safe. There's no safe position anymore.
Exactly.
That staying silent is going to hurt you more. And not only that, but people are buying based on that. The values-based spending is like huge trend, and that's going to cover PR, marketing, social media, everything. Their consumers are going to definitely like vote, so to speak, with their wallets, and they're going to show the brands what they think about their stands. And like, there's not going to be a way that you're going to say any stand and not alienate some people, but it's about what aligns with your business and your values and your vision going forward. And I think the cool thing with that too is I think the biggest thing that you can do, and this ties into social media, is I heard a lot about it, like in the days after the murder of George Floyd, where a lot of people, in the Black community, as well as just social media pros and PR marketing and comms pros saying, it's not enough just to put the black box up, and it's not enough to say something, but then not to back it up. So the first thing is you can't stay silent. But the second thing is, don't just say something pretty and then expect that to hold over.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking, Sephora, Ulta, Kroger, what was it? I think Target recently, Apple, point by point, this is what we're doing. This is exactly who we're spending our money on. This is exactly who we're partnering with. This is how we're going to make it better. This is what we're going to do internally to hire more BIPOC people and make our culture more inclusive and welcoming. And honestly, that's really where it's going. It's not only presenting that and taking a stand, but it's coming to the table, and it's painful. And a lot of people don't want to do it because nobody wants to have those tough conversations. And also nobody wants to go, yeah, we haven't been doing that great, right? Like, absolutely nobody wants to have that conversation. But that's what is working. That honest, like, assessment of, we could be doing better, so we are. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to remain accountable. And I would highly recommend, anyone listening to check out, her name is Janet Stovall. She works for UPS as an executive speechwriter and communicator, as well as for the UPS Foundation. But she has a TED Talk out there that is amazing. It was back in 2013, and it is so relevant to today because that just kind of shows you the sad state of affairs that, 8 years later, it's the same thing because we still can't get it completely. Yeah. But it's this, like, part of business and how you have to be accountable. You cannot do anything and expect people to trust you and expect people to be loyal to you if you can't be accountable to the things that you say. And so, and I think that's the overarching lesson. And that even plays into authenticity. We love to throw around that word, right? And one of the biggest ways you can be authentic is by just going, this isn't right. We could be doing better. And here's what we're going to do. As small or as big, you're not, I mean, I can tell you that, most brands don't have the swing that Ulta or Sephora or Apple does, but everybody can come up with a point by point plan and be specific and commit to things that they can then follow up and be accountable for. And that's what you want to start posting on social media.
That's so key. And you're so right too. And again, for brands, business leaders, or decision makers who are watching this and are thinking, okay, we need to start doing that, because Beki was right on. Your social media people are the front line of that. They're getting asked those questions. Brands are getting those queries in your comments, in the private messages, or they're tagging you, or they're not tagging you and talking about you in their own, saying, well, here's what I'm seeing from this company. I don't know if I want to buy there anymore, or I want to start buying there because of what I'm seeing. All of that, you have to be equipping your social media teams, your social media pro, whoever's managing it for you, with what your stance is, and stand by that. Look, you really is in a market, and I know we all know this, but you don't market to everybody. You shouldn't, because you have a target customer. You have those target customers. You are going to probably lose some because they are suddenly not going to agree with whatever the stance is. But my goodness, you're probably going to gain much more loyalty and gain that trust that that Beki was just talking about. That is now your big commodity, that people are trusting your business more than they might trust, say, a news outlet, or or government, or things like that. But Beki, I know this was great, because I know we went a little long, but it was such good content and those valuable insights. And I'm going to get all the links from you later, of who you mentioned, and the report you mentioned and stuff too, because it's great information for people to be grabbing. Real quick, can you just tell people where they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, so I spell my name kind of weird. It's Beki, so you can just follow me. It's at Beki Weki on Twitter. If you just Google Beki Weki, you'll probably find everything else, because it's either Beki Weki or Beki Winchel. LinkedIn, Facebook, Flipboard, Twitter, whatever. Everything spreads out from there. You can also follow my Basset Hound if you want lighthearted content. He is at Sir Tibble's dog. Because I am ridiculous and I am that sort of a pet owner.
I
So
love it.
happy to connect. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much for
much.
having me on.
Oh, it was wonderful, wonderful insights. And like I said, this will be up on all of the accounts and on YouTube later. So if anyone needs to take this to your decision maker and say, listen to what this woman said, you got it now. But Beki, thanks for being on Social Glue, powered by Restream.
Thanks so much, Rachel, and have a good day. I hope to connect with everybody later. We'll definitely share, Rachel, with you all those links. Let's make some awesome stuff happen.
That's right. I love it. Thank you so much. You're awesome. Bye.
Bye.
See, I love this stuff, because we get into such good insights. And these are takeaways that any brand, any business can and should use. You just got pretty much a primer on how to be a brand on social. So take it, run with it, use that information. I know today's show is going a little long, but you can't help it when you're covering a really good topic, and you don't want to be like, I'm sorry, I know you're saying really awesome stuff, I'm just going to cut you off. I ain't doing that. It's a live stream anyway. So it's good stuff, and we're able to accommodate it. And now it's going to live in infamy and in forever in social media on this video. It's awesome. Let us get to the final portion of the show, which is our haiku send-off. Before I do, just remember, this is all brought to you by the power of Restream. I don't have a 30-minute cap. I can go as long as I want. I think 4 hours is like my limit for live stream. So if Beki wanted to get back on and we could go for another 3.5 hours, we could do that. But Restream is bringing you today's show. It's what has allowed me to share the comments, share the link you're seeing on the screen, and bring these guests and insights to you. So please try it out for yourself. There's my little short link. Rachel uses Restream, all lowercase. Go try it out. You'll dig. And with that, let us get into the final portion of today, which is our social haiku. So real quick, a haiku is probably one of the simplest poems you could ever write. It's 3 lines. The first line has to be 5 syllables long. The second has to be 7. And the third one has to be 5 again. They don't even have to rhyme. Okay. They're literally like the easiest thing to write ever. So I put a ploy out yesterday saying, hey, I need some haikus so I can share these on the show. So today's haiku is brought to you by Greg Rokiski on Twitter. And so I'm going to put that up. So I love this one. So in the quotes, it's, make us go viral, the needy client asked me. Then I cried. For those of us who are out there who have been asked, hey, can we make this go viral? And you just immediately want to sink into the floor because you're like, Nope, because if I knew how to do that, I wouldn't need to work for you. But that is a great haiku that really kind of brings home the commiseration we all have as social media pros. So please, by all means, submit your own social haiku on our website. Again, it's at really.social/social glue, and you can put up your own haiku, and I'll put your handle up there so people know where it came from. But thank you all for watching. Again, we're here every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, right here. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, and we're on Twitter. I should change that. See, I can change that graphic. I can do that right now. Watch this. I'm going to change it right now. LinkedIn, wait, Twitter, to YouTube, and wait. Just cover. I want to do it so you guys can see I can do it. I'm Butterfinger, so I'm going to leave it off. But we're all on Twitter too. But do visit us, really.social/social glue, and we're here every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I really appreciate everyone watching. Thank you for hanging with us today for a great show again. And until we see you next week, stay sticky with the social stuff. It's not meant to be gross. It's just, social sticks to you like glue, hence the name. Thanks for watching Social Glue, powered by Restream, everyone. Bye.